Okay, so first I would like you to kind of introduce yourself to the audience of the Fendick Theater for Children. Just give us your name, what your position is in theater right now, and just a fun little fact like what's your favorite musical?
Hi, my name is Kristopher Steege. I teach at Marion University. I am an assistant professor of theater. My background is in design and technical theater, and I am the technical director of our theater program, which means that I am in charge of the design and build of our theater productions, focusing mainly and almost entirely on the scenery, from the construction to the painting to the installation of scenery on stage. I haven't had to do this for a while, work on the lights or the sound, or even had anything to do with costumes. But that's something that I've had to do in the past as well. And that's what I do. In terms of what's my favorite musical, that's a great question. There's several musicals that I do love and are super catchy, and I'd have to say the one that's been on my mind recently is one that I've directed before, and I'd love to have another chance to do, and that's Godspell.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so I know I'm just going to say you kind of had an unconventional route into the theater industry, I'm going to call it, like you getting a bachelor's degree, then going back and pursuing a master's. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in theater and how you led to where you are now?
My first involvement in theater actually would have been back in grade school, and from let me just start. So from church events and then school plays, I actually was very interested in performance. And I had a lot of great opportunities and support in the small town of Delmont, South Dakota that I grew up in to participate in productions, from the small scale, like I said, with the churches to school productions. And then once I was in high school, opportunities to audition and be a part of some plays. When I went to college, South Dakota State University in Brookings, South Dakota, I didn't really have a great clue as to what kind of theater options were available to me. I went there with a major in art, as a art major. I wanted to paint. And then when I figured out that I could audition for plays, I auditioned for a musical, Brigadoon, got in, and then several lights started turning on for me that I could actually major in theater. I don't know why this never occurred to me that I could do that, but so I started taking classes in theater along with being an art major. And when the theater program discovered that I was an art major, they're like, hey, can you work over here on props and helping paint scenery? And these are things I'd never thought about. I wanted to perform. I loved the spotlight. So I started getting involved with technical theater, and very quickly was like, no, this is something else I really want. And so I double majored in theater and graduated with, so I double majored and graduated with a degree in both theater and art. And my last year of college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet. I think I had it in my head that as an artist, as long as I'm doing my art, I can work at McDonald's and I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere in my last year of undergraduate program, I started looking into scenery. I was given the opportunity to design a set for my first one with the help of a mentor was Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And when I could see that designing scenery for theater was really an extension of what I was doing in art, just a painting on a larger scale. I was hooked in a whole different way.
Mhm.
So I started looking into graduate programs and was lucky enough to get into the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I went, Madison, Wisconsin, where I went and finished my master's in scenic design, and then was lucky enough to get a job teaching design and technical theater here at Marion College at the time, back in 1998, and I've been here ever since. They haven't gotten rid of me yet.
Hopefully they're not getting rid of you anytime soon.
I hope not.
Yeah, I think your story is really interesting in the terms of like going and saying like, I love the spotlight, I love the stage, to then discovering this entire like new avenue and new front of theater, which is like the technical aspect of theater. A lot of the kids at Fendig Summer Theater for Children, they don't necessarily understand the technical side of things, and they're just like, oh, I just love the spotlight, I'll stay there. And I think during this whole pandemic, we've done videos kind of like this where Blake and I, he's my coworker, and we talk about kind of this design aspects of theater, the technical aspects of theater. And when we were asking the kids what their favorite videos were, they would always say like the tech parts of theater, and like that was interesting to them. Yeah, and I was just like, wow, like I know that Fendig does offer opportunities for the kids to be a part of the technical aspects, but a lot of them just don't necessarily understand what the tech is, and like it's just kind of this word that we throw around, and they're like, I don't know what that is. And then like once they learn about it, they're like, this is so cool, and it's the funniest thing.
That's awesome, because and this isn't trying to be humble, I really don't think about, I guess I should, a better way to put it is, I'm often surprised at how fascinated people are with what we do in technical theater.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I guess we just take it for granted, and to us, and I think the actors and directors feel this way too, is that when we produce something, there is the thrill of the whole experience, and there is some reflection on what we have accomplished. But then there's a critiquing part too. It's like, okay, I learned this, and I'm going to do this for the future. And I could be wrong about this, but I don't think I really sit back and go, oh my goodness, well, that's it. I've accomplished something, and it's done, and I can pat myself on the back. There's certainly an aspect that's like, wow, that really turned out great. But for me, it always seems like my mind is going on to the next thing. It's like, what's the next cool thing I'm going to get to do? And I'm excited about that. That's definitely one of the aspects of theater. And I think it goes back to my art training too, especially being a poor student that didn't have money as a painting major to go and buy a lot of canvases,
Mm-hmm.
where I had to reuse canvases over and over again. And in theater, as you know, we build things that are going to get used in different ways later on. And sometimes people get attached to artwork or the things that we create, and it's something that we want to hold on to. And certainly sometimes we create things in theater, it's like, wow, we got to hang that up someplace so that people can see it. But for the most part, it's always about, that was awesome, now what's the next thing that we're going to do, and being able to let that go and cherish that memory, and take pictures of it. That is good to document, but it's always looking towards the future.
Yeah, it's really, I think you summed that up really well.
Thank you.
I guess you semi already answered this question. Did you always know that you're going to have the job you're currently in?
No, I don't think so. In No, I had a lot of different ideas about what I wanted to do, and even as an art major, I think initially I was fascinated with biology and science. Um, I think there was a part of me that early on in my academic career that I was thinking that that would be a rational direction to go. I think even though I don't remember ever formally stating this, that I think I did want to teach. And I shouldn't really separate that out, the teaching aspect, because I've talked about myself as a designer and as
Mm-hmm.
an artist, and that's where my career has, um, that aspect is certainly there. But I don't remember thinking, I remember being influenced heavily by teachers and being very impressed. And, I wish I could do that, but I don't think that that was something that was a goal of mine
Mm-hmm.
until I got to college. And one of my professors and a dear mentor, Desi Royable, um, working with him did make something click that this is what I want to do. So even going to graduate school, I think I had this thought in my head that getting a master's in design was going to open up that door to teaching at the college level. That all of a sudden I did have a direction, even though on the other side of this, I knew that I wanted to continue to work professionally too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very blessed that things kind of have fallen into place in terms of my entire career. And this isn't part of your question, but to kind of make a statement about this, I think hopefully there's something to be owed to that I do a good job. I get great recommendations based on that. But two other aspects that I think have been very important to my success have been my hard work, my work ethic, and hopefully my personality as well. That I love working with people, and in theater we have a lot of different personalities, and sometimes everybody doesn't get along or have the same vision. But I'd like to think that I've always been a person who strives to be somebody who strengthens relationships and collaboration as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the opposite.
Yeah.
And so I am so grateful that I've had many people take initial risks, because coming out of grad school, for example, at Marion College, that, I didn't have any teaching experience before that.
Mm-hmm.
And my 20-year career here has been all about learning how to be a good teacher. I'm still on that pathway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of what theater is learning how to maintain good relationships with those around you, whether or not you agree with them or are buddies with them outside of the theater. You are all working toward the same exact goal, and building that little family in theater is a very essential part. And I think, especially right now, we're kind of missing that in our theater realm because of the pandemic going on.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's one of the things I love about theater too. I love being an artist,
mhm.
but as a painter, and then there's opportunities for community in art as well. But my experience there was, I you're kind of working on your own, and whereas in theater, it was you develop a family. It's a different type of family.
It
Uh,
really is.
my experiences at South Dakota State University, they have a summer repertory theater that's connected to the university called the Prairie Repertory Theater, and there's 40, 50 people within that are that audition and are hired into the company. And back in my day, we were doing just 4 shows a year, and it was unbelievable, the experience of having for at least 9 hours a day in 3 different sessions, whether you're in rehearsal or you're working in one of the shops. The community that we built over 2 months, and then performing together and striking and turning around and sometimes we do 3 shows in a week. Altogether, we do at least 4 shows throughout the summer. It was just really incredible. You got sick of everybody by the 2 months. By the end of those 2 months, you're like, I need a break, like you would of a family. And then when you come back again, you're just like, I can't wait to see everybody again. That's something that's really struck with me all of my life, and what I think we've tried to do here at Marion University now is to create that kind of family feeling.
Yeah.
That people look out for each other, especially in the technical areas when we're working with all these dangerous tools sometimes. That it's not just important for people to have other people around in case there's an accident so that you can tell somebody, but to be looking out for each other and being proactive and helping each other out.
Yeah. Okay. So, how would you recommend to someone to get involved with performing arts in their area if they don't have a lot of resources or opportunities to join performances? Like right now during the pandemic, may not be too many opportunities going around.
You make your own opportunities. If you have the technology, I mean, that's a start. You can play around with the camera, and I'm not seeing a lot of evidence of this, but I'm sure it's happening. That because I know professional theaters and academic theaters and people are trying to figure out, well, what can we do with the technology we do have to continue to create things? And at its core, that's why this is just a hiccup in history for theater, that we are forcing ourselves to come up with creative solutions as to how can we still perform live. What we're doing right now in this interview, Sydney, we totally could have a script memorized and could be acting something out.
Oh, definitely.
And film it. And I don't know what that would be. It could be something, as cheesy as a soap opera or something like that. But I know it can happen. And we're seeing, and I have seen, examples of, Saturday Night Live and the Indiana Repertory Theater here in town have been playing with how people that are able to be close together, how they can record things and then include somebody on a laptop or something and bring them in. That Zoom and all these other video formats that they're trying to create theater. It's tough for us because right now with this, it's basically television, right? Or film. I mean, so we're playing with the format that we traditionally don't have a lot of experience, or we don't have the technology, all the different cameramen and microphones and everything, and lighting equipment specifically for capturing things on film. But we should still be trying to create things. And I would heavily advocate for, this is a great opportunity to start writing down ideas and making scripts. And this is something that I've been noticing within the last couple of years that has nothing to do with COVID necessarily, but maybe COVID can play into this, is that a lot of the stories that we've been presenting on stage for the last 100 years, or even before that, there are pieces that still resonate very strongly today, but I feel like in terms of our cultures, and especially culture clashes and talking about race and ethnicity and gender and gender identity, that we need new stories. And I think we need people to tell their stories. And what better way maybe for people to do that than to record themselves, or to start finding new avenues of being able to do that. So I don't know. I mean, and we could be having puppet shows.
Yeah.
I don't have any puppets, otherwise I'd be holding my hands. I mean, we can create puppet shows. We can play around with the backgrounds and scenery. I've seen a lot of different examples of other universities playing with the video format, and it's a lot of hiccups in terms of trying to figure out what's the best way, what's the best way to do that. And I think it's sort of unfair in some ways because we're trying to compete with film and television that already have the technology and already have these production values. So we have to ignore that and make it personal. And
Yeah.
we just have to explore with the tools that you have, with the limits that you have. This is something I've always advocated, and I don't want anybody to tell the administration at the university I teach at is, really at the end of the day, if you take away our budget, if you take away our spaces, but we still have a program, so I'm still hired, and I say, you still need to create theater, then we will create theater. We will find a way to do it. We'll find a space or a location on campus or somewhere else, and we will get actors to rehearse and memorize lines. We'll have that story. We'll figure out what time of the day it has to perform if we don't have lights, or what kind of lights that we need. We'll figure out costumes. We don't need to have the money. It does force us to be creative, but if we want to, at our university, if we want to train students to be able to go out there and do this professionally, we do need access to resources to be able to do that effectively.
Yeah, kind of going off of what you were saying about like creating your own opportunities. I actually recently, Tristan helped me do this too, kind of shoot a music video / like not video, but with the song Welcome Home from Bandstand. And I shot it for Veterans Day as like a thank you to our vets. Just kind of saying like, welcome home, you're very much appreciated, you're very much seen. And it was a pretty awesome experience. I got to use the theater. I met with Zach, he did the lighting and sound for me. Then I ended up actually recording my song in a little studio, which was kind of fun. It was interesting. I'd never done that before. Kind of nerve-wracking too, but I think during this time, it's like, well, let's explore these different avenues, these different interests you may not have explored previously. And you're kind of, it's forcing yourself to like go out and try so many more new things, be much more creative than you probably were before, to find all of these new opportunities.
I totally agree. I mean, this is a little bit off the topic, but as a teacher, and when we all went into quarantine, and you were in my class, weren't you? No, you weren't.
I was in the play watching class.
Yeah. So that class wasn't too hard to recalibrate where we needed to go. But my stagecraft class, when I was getting too close to hands-on instruction and teaching how to do paint techniques and construction techniques, it forced me to rethink everything. And as stressful as that was, on the other side of that, looking, when you start getting through it, it's so incredibly exciting and invigorating to be challenged to come up with new ways to solve the challenge. I want to say challenges as opposed to problems. If we can think of them as challenges, hurdles that we need to get over, how do we do it, as opposed to a problem that's a brick wall that you have no idea that you give up. It's exciting, and that's what we do in theater all the time anyway. We're always confronted. What options do we have? I mean, which direction do we want to take? And then learning, that wasn't the right one. Let's go back and let's try a different one. As opposed to, we shouldn't even try. It's not worth the effort.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to fail. No, I think theater people, learn failing is exciting. It can
It
be
is.
frustrating, but it's exciting because then you learn, and you learn more about yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's awesome, and I want to see that video. Is it possible for me to see that video?
Yeah, I should be uploading it today actually at some point in time. So I'll make sure to email you a link
Thank
or
you.
like send you a link of it.
I'm really excited to see how it turns out, how
Mhm.
it turned out.
I think it turned out relatively well. Yeah.
Good.
So I have one last question for you, and we kind of touched on it. We kind of touched on both of these it's like a two-for question. What advice would you give young performers right now, and how can we grow our skills during this pandemic?
I think, yeah, we did sort of touch on this. So for performers, if you don't mind me addressing the technicians or the artists, just keep making.
Mm-hmm.
Performers, record yourself. Take a look at
Use
what you do.
TikTok.
Yeah, take a look at what you're, have an opportunity to reflect on everything that you're doing, but just don't let this hold you back from performing. Act out, dance, sing, and when if you are recording yourselves and are very critical and you're like embarrassed, you don't want anybody to see that, sometimes there's value in creating art just for yourself, just because
Mm-hmm.
you have that creative urge to just to make, to paint, to draw, whatever, just to do that. And then don't be afraid to start sharing and take that risk, and let yourself, in your mind, perhaps you're failing, but until we start getting things out in the world, we sometimes don't know, and we can't learn and grow from that. And so the advice to the performers and the artists is to make. The next step is, hopefully share it with people. And if somebody says they don't like it, don't take that criticism as something that you can't do it. Take it as an opportunity to take that next step. Because no matter how good something is that you do, there's always an opportunity for you to take it to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you are that kind of person that is willing to take risks. I know it's scary. Even I do this. I can walk in front of a classroom, and if I think about it too much ahead of time and worry about how it's going to go, then I will more than likely stumble all over the place. I've
Mm-hmm.
thankfully been doing this long enough where it's like I usually don't care. I'll
Mm-hmm.
let myself mistakes, and then use those mistakes as a teachable opportunity as well. But just please follow creative your creative influences, and just try things out. Work on playing with accents, work on taking a monologue, seeing if you can memorize it, perform it one way, and then challenge yourself to come up with a different approach, or different situations in your mind as to, well, what if this character is afraid of
Mm-hmm.
whatever's happening in the scene, so that you can continue to practice things and develop your skills. Read. That's another great place for us to be at this particular time, is to read and evaluate and view other performances, and not just television or film. Not that we can't learn a lot of great things there too, but we have never had this opportunity to really watch other productions, theater productions, to get a good sense. And it's not the same quality all the time, but there's so much for us to learn and go, I like that. And that over here, though, that I would do it a little bit differently. And that's cool to have that in your toolbox, or take those skills or those ideas and put that in your toolbox for you to use later on to those lessons. But reading plays, I wanted to get back to that. this is a really great opportunity to expand how much you know. And the grade levels that you're dealing with, Sydney, they're very young, right?
It's about 4th through 8th graders is the
Okay.
target grade levels.
So you're not too young where you can't read some fairly important plays.
Mm-hmm.
But another challenge might be this is just a fun challenge, and this is for the teachers maybe, as I think about how folklore and mythology, these are things that I've been very interested in. On a side project for myself is where I've been developing children's plays, but to advocate that in the classroom, that this is a really good place to take usually shared concepts about something that we all, a lot of stories that we all have in common. I realize that not everybody knows who Rumpelstiltskin is, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people know who Red Riding Hood is and the general idea of the story, or the Three Little Pigs. And to take these kinds of stories and, do fractured fairy tales, break them up and think about things. How can we do this story in different ways? And think about the themes, the action. What kind of things do we need to have in the story? And how can we remix that and do it in different ways? Taking something that's really simple and known and play with it as a way of exploring ideas that's going to build into something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think during this time, it's all about your mindset. I've caught myself even slipping into this mindset of like, oh, I'm just getting robbed because of this pandemic. It's just like I just can't do anything. My life before this pandemic was so much better. And it's like, yeah, my life before it was great and it was so fun and there were so many of these opportunities that we would consider normal. But now it's like you can't fixate on what was. You have to fixate on what is and what you can do and how you can make the best of it now. And it's pretty much like you need to force yourself to kind of have that growth mindset and say, okay, well, I can't do this like I normally do, so let's do this thing that I don't think I ever really would have thought about doing before. And just having that mindset and like flipping that mindset switch is just so important. And I think people overlook that a lot more than they should right now.
I totally agree. In fact, I had that sort of come to Jesus moment for myself yesterday. Uh, I had a class where only half of the class, well, not even half of the class showed up in person, and then
Mm-hmm.
another 4 students were online joining virtually, and then 3 students didn't show up, and they were all supposed to be doing presentations. And I caught myself thinking, this is so ridiculous. Why am I stop it?
Yeah.
No, like it's all okay. Everybody's dealing with their own things. You need to relax. If we were in the theater, would I be frustrated if we built something wrong and then had to redo it? I might be like, oh, no, that's unfortunate that we have to do that. And yeah, it's not always fun to have to redo things, but we would handle that kind of challenge
Mm-hmm.
as a learning experience, but also that that's what we do. We have to be able to be flexible and turn around and make it right if we want to accomplish the goals at the end. This is not any different. So yeah, it can be very frustrating, but we're going to get through this, and
Yeah.
we're going to learn so much about ourselves and the new technologies that we have to deal with, because that's what's I think going to happen next. Once we are all in person and and getting to be back together, and then we're going to be able to take some new tools that we've learned from technology and apply them in new ways too. So it's going to be very
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see the evolution of all of our practices, from education to artwork to theater and music, in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you. I hope I wasn't too far out all over the place.
You are not.